Morning, folks. We're going to do, I'm going to butcher it, Hynade. Yeah, they do welding and plasma cutters. They do a lot of other products, but we're going to look at these two this week. And starting Monday, we're going to go with, a Pilot Arc plasma cutter. Okay, quick before I open the box, I just want to mention that it's a Pilot Arc, which is an excellent feature on a plasma cutter because it means the tip and all that does not need to make any contact with the metal while it's cutting. That's a good thing. The other thing that is really nice here is dual voltage. So it's 110 and or 220. I prefer to use the 220 all the time, but if you need to, if you only have 110 around the shop, hey, you can do it. And this is a good machine for anytime you're cutting metal. It's just one of the best ways to do it, and you don't have to have the torches and the gas bottles and everything laying around. You just plug in the Pilot Arc, put some compressor air on it, and blow through kind of thing. Yeah, that's a nice feature. So we're going to get into this one first this week, being Monday and everything, and I'll get the box open. We'll get the machine out, and then we'll talk some more numbers about this one. So here's the accessories, and here's the Pilot Arc machine. This is what came in the box. Okay, you've got the machine, and you've got, I guess in theory, everything you need to run this guy with, and it looks really good. Power cord, always a question. It's a fairly decent length by the looks of it. Yep, not too bad. There's the 220 all set for you. It has a converter, which I see these all the time, and like I say, they work well enough. I have tested these things out, and they do work on 110. They seem to do okay. I've always preferred to use the 220 because I specifically built 220 to my shop just for welding and or a Pilot Arc plasma cutter. Yes. So ground. Let's have a look at the ground. Oh, geez. A long time ago when we were kids, we used to have to take the ground off the welding machines and stuff and throw them away and go buy something like this. And these already come. They have this nice heavy copper shunt field with copper bus right here to grab onto your work load, and they come with a fairly decent length of ground cable. So that's good. Cut that ground cable part out. Got a really nice thin book of instructions because you don't need to really know a whole lot about this, but you do need to know a little bit. There's some fittings here for the air lines and hookups with some Teflon tape. Always good. There's also a little wrench to help put this thing together. Oh, one thing I should mention too, I guess, when you're doing this, make sure you got an air dryer on your compressor. And it looks like we've got we got an air dryer with the machine, which is good because that's one of the things about a Pilot Arc. You don't want a lot of moisture and air coming through. Looks like we've got, I think we have, there we are. We have a little air gauge, of course, that goes on our regulator, but it's not just a regulator, it's also a water separator filter system right here, which will help get moisture out of that compressed air. That is an important feature on any of these machines. You really need good dry air when you're using a Pilot Arc type system like this. And now the cable that actually goes on here, look at this thing. Yeah, nice and long. Yep, gotta love it. And it's a good heavy, wow, that's a nice handle. Got the guard on there so you don't trip on this thing and set it off and burn your foot or something. Burn a running shoe off, right? Yeah. Always wear running shoes, yeah. People amaze me, yeah. I've seen guys in sandals running these things and you're just like, how? I've hooked everything up and I've just plugged her in temporarily. I've got about 19 pounds. Now this is just an opinion, or at least my habit, but when I use a plasma cutter, I generally use a lower pressure setting for the air. A lot of times lower than what they even call for. I find if you get too much air pressure that it really messes up the cutter. So that said, I'm gonna move on, but it's a really simple, easy situation here to, it shows 19 pounds of air pressure right now. We're set at 20 amps for cutting. These control buttons down here, we can get into that, but this one here will run the air, keep running it, keep it on kind of thing. You've also got a 2T and a 4T here, and you also have a selection here for your pressure for your gun, but maybe we'll cover that a little later. right now the whole thing is I've got it dialed in, and I just wanted you to see the, what, you know, plasma. Yeah. Plasma is like loose electrons just kind of flying around. They're kind of hot, and they're like rogues, you know. And so we'll see if we can get this on the camera. I turned the lights down a little bit here, so hopefully you can see this real good. But yeah, oh yeah, that's a plasma cutter. Yeah, that is so cool. Now, very first thing I got to point out, I'm going to shut this off. I don't think we, you know, the cooling fan's running right now, but I don't think we needed it. This is a 55 amp plasma cutter. So normally we have a 50. That's what I thought we were looking at. But I was curious about the part number on there that Hynade had mentioned, because it said 55 0 DP whatever. You know, it was like, wait a minute, that might be a 55 amp machine, which would be surprising because for the price it's usually smaller than that. So it's a 55. It's a little tweaked up a little bit better than the others, competitors that are out there right now that I know of. Anyway, we've hooked this up. This is really pretty straightforward. I didn't even look in the manual to see how this goes on, because really, like I say, it's just kind of a no-brainer. The radial looking connector slides in and locks in right here. Got your red wire right up here. Obviously this is going to be your ground. I haven't got that even plugged in right now. And this is kind of an interesting thing. You pull a little rubber cap off and hook it up, but really this is your air pressure line coming through to the, you know, to the gun anyways. So it's really a no-brainer. Now the back of the machine, you've got some assembly work to do. Now see if I can, you know, yeah, we'll take the airline off for a second so I can get this thing turned around and I can show it to you, because there's a little bit of work to do back here, but it's really, again, if you've been around any kind of plasma cutters, this is kind of a no-brainer. But here's your regulator, and when I started it up, there was zero pressure. I had to turn the regulator down in order to get some pressure up to show it. The gauge shows me what the pressure, line pressure is coming into the regulator, and then when I turn this, you know, I can, you know, increase or decrease the amount of pressure coming in, and you can read the gauge, but you have a nice digital readout on the front, which is kind of cool. Now you've got push-in connectors here with these, the air line. It's a clear little air line, so don't get too, you know, involved or confused. There's a clear line that looks like a tube for an aquarium or something, but you push it in and we'll lock it in. These fittings, this fitting here was already on, no biggie. But this fitting here, you have to install it, same with the pressure gauge, and same with the quick connect fitting for the air pressure here. Just thought I'd go over that with you real quick, because some people open all this stuff up and get a little lost. Now, the two screws here were loose, but they were already in the machine waiting for the bracket. Once the bracket, now when you put the bracket on, there's a tongue at the front of the bracket. You want that tongue facing down, because that's going to actually fit into the casting on this regulator here. And I just thought, again, something I should mention. Now, all that done, we still need to put the ground on it. And turn it around here again for a second. And I think we'll go outside. Now, another safety item I'm going to mention. I always use one of these, quick welding helmets that has the sunshade, you know, has the shader on it, so it's easy to see, and then it shades the second that the plasma cutter starts cutting. That's what I use. But you should definitely make sure you're protecting your eyes when using a plasma cutter. It's like a laser, it's like anything else. It's not good for your eyes. So like welding, you know, MIG welding, same thing. You do produce a lot of light. In fact, that plasma cutter, technically it's 10 times, I think it was 10,000 or 10 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Yeah, it's that hot. Because those little electrons are just, they're broke from their atoms, and they're free, and they're roguey, and they're real hot, and they're, you know, and then you're just going to steer them through and cut, in this case, some steel. It's just a quick, fun way of doing things. And I just got a tip from a guy who was showing me something this morning, so we're going to try I'll try a little something with it. But if he needs a pattern, he'll cut the pattern in wood, and then he will use this to guide it against the wood to do the pattern cut, if that's what he needs. And that was like, that's cheap, simple, and I was like, I like it. That is really a cool idea. So I'm going to use a piece of 2x4 or something while I make my straight cut across today, I guess. But like I said, we'll do that outside in the driveway here, so we can cut that up. Just check, make sure I've got you know, all my safety equipment and gear ready to go before we do the cut. When we come back, I'm going to be outside, and we're going to try to cut with this thing. Okay, we're outside. What I did was just as you can see, just jury-rigged a piece of 2x4 up against a steel plate, and I'm going to just run low voltage, 110. So I want to try that out anyway. So like I said, I usually don't use 110. And we'll cut this, and ideally I'm just going to come across like this and cut that piece of steel off. So let's see how we do with it. Yep. Wow. Let's see. I'll just leave her running and let her cool down, I guess. That's on 220. That's a fairly heavy piece of steel, maybe 3/16, something like that. Okay, this is just for the sponsor's clip in case they needed something, but let's see. Yeah, Hynade, it is the best for the value for the plasma cutter. This is your baby. Okay. Now let's go back to the regular show. Now, I was outside and I made some mistakes. Man, I made some boo-boos. I had a bad ground, which was a first problem always. You gotta have a good ground. You know, welding, plasma cut, don't matter. You still need a good ground. And the thing was old, rusty, and painted, so I you know, sandpapered a little bit in a corner to try to get a good ground on it. And I just could not seem to get that part working really well. So that's not the machine's fault. That's to do with the, unfortunately, the material. I probably should have picked a nice clean piece of steel to cut today. But I needed that piece of steel for my Jeep. Now, the next thing, the 110 was not very strong. So again, like I've said, I've never liked the idea of using 110 on these machines. So if you're cutting sheet metal, something fairly light, you can probably get away with it, and you know, no problem. You know, God bless, have at it. But if you're cutting heavy, like that was actually, I checked afterwards, that's 1/4 inch steel. Yeah, I didn't realize how, I knew it was heavy when I put it up there on that stand, but that was thicker than I thought it was, so my adjustments were a little off on the settings, but it still cut through really fast, really nice. Did a really nice straight edge across there. And the other thing was, with the steel and with the pressures on this thing, I was really surprised that I wanted to blow it this way across, so that I was thinking in camera terms that you guys could see the sparks flying off. I'd be able to just drag it along that 2x4 like this and just cut. No, that was a sort of a bad idea. When you're using a plasma cutter such as this, it's really nice to do it this way, because this metal clip will actually drag along the steel really nicely and give you a fairly smooth operation. Where when it's laying down like that on the 2x4, I was dragging, getting caught, dragging, getting caught. So it was like jerking, you know, motion across there trying to cut. And it was a painted 2x4, and even the paint seemed to be, you know, disrupting, you know, the gun, you know, the guide or whatever on this gun. So painted 2x4, bad idea. Clean 2x4 would have been good idea, or even 2x4 that's been shaved, you know, fairly smooth, like gone through like a thickness planer like I have or something, would have made it, you know, a little bit easier to sort of draw it along a little bit. I ended up using, when you saw it, that final clip when I'm really, you know, cutting pretty good. That's on the 220. That is not the 110. That's the 220 cut in the 1/4 inch plate and just, you know, slicing through. Slice through like butter. I had some problems with the welding helmet. I've never had that problem until today. It would need some adjustment. Every time the plasma cutter started up, the helmet would shade so dark it would just almost go black. You couldn't see anything, and so that wasn't very good. I should have spent some time setting the helmet up maybe to see, you know, a little better. I ended up getting behind this with my eyesight and just watching the cutting this way. So it really was, the worst thing I was seeing was those, you know, yellow orangey sparks coming off the other end. I couldn't actually see the plasma cutter itself. So it wasn't like it was a welder, you know, in my face where it's in my eyes or something. So being careful with that, but I did tilt the helmet up in order so I could, you know, see a little bit better at times, because again, there was so much dragging along that 2x4. I really thought it was a cool idea the fellow told me about this morning, but Turns out I goofed on it. Yeah, apparently the 2x4 would be good, but you know, do it this way against the wood or whatever it is. But the idea again, and the idea of using wood for pattern, you know, whoa. But yeah, this is Hynade, and this is their awesome little plasma cutter. So we're great price. I'm going to have a link in the description below for this, but you know what? I'm also going to add a link in the description for the MIG welder, which is the 145, again, 110 and or 220. And we'll be looking at that machine later this week. But right now, we're looking at the plasma cutter, and I have to admit, it's a nice, easy unit to use. It's fairly light, you know, but it's just easy to use, and it cuts steel like butter. You've got to have a guide. That's something that I think I've mentioned in the past, but you've got to have something up against this. If you do this freehand, you will not believe the mess you'll make. Oh man, but we'll have links for both, so that'll be great. And I gotta thank Hynade for sending this over to us to have a look at, because I'm really surprised. It's not a brand name I've ever heard of, but I sort of think they're sort of familiar for some reason. Not sure why that is, but they do welding and cutting products for metal. Good stuff, man, and great prices. So we'll move on. But hey, thank you for watching Coffee and Tools. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the notice bell, and man, I can't wait to do some MIG welding this week. Over and out.